hanging out for an extra like 20 minutes or so after our class for, I guess there's some sort of video or announcement or something, but not class, but still in here. So I'll do attendance. Then let's all right, so let's do, unless you are following along on the screen, go ahead and turn off your screen, and we'll do our best. About what? Yeah, about what? Okay. Sit anywhere, but we're using we need the regular computer for this class. So. There is that. What I was trying to do here. Oh, all right. Give me a second. So the plan for today, actually, what's up? Turn on the machine. So I forgot to point it out as you were coming in, but if there's ever a handout or a worksheet in the tray by the front door, go ahead and grab one. These don't write on them, I want the back. In the future, there will probably be some where I can write your name on it because it's like an assignment. This is just a resource for practicing. So, I don't know how to mute your computers from making noises. We'll do our best. All right, so the plan for today is Inventor Day 1. Okay, so we're going to talk about the program. Just follow along. It's a lot of information, but just do your best and we'll figure it out. Okay, you aren't expected to have any pre-existing knowledge of this, and you'll be fine as long as you pay attention, do your best, all that stuff. So the program that we use is called Autodesk Inventor, and it can be found under, if you go to the school menu thing, under departments and tech and career ed, and it's called Autodesk Inventor. It's not available on Chromebooks. You might be able to get a copy at home if you try hard enough, but it is available here. And the program, when you open it up, will probably look something like this, some home screen. And this is where, well, you don't really need the home screen. Everything's going to be from the toolbars up here. But let's talk about the tips for Inventor. All right, so guys, unless you're following along with the meeting, go ahead and turn off your screen or whatever. Just, well, we'll have time for demo and follow along and click and all that kind of stuff. For now, just screens off or watch the Zoom meeting or whatever. Okay, so we'll get into the details of the program shortly, but there are a few things that you need to know and good habits that are required for things to work, where just sort of laziness and not paying attention and lack of attention might ruin things. Okay, so you can't really change the file name of a file after you make it. You can do save as, that will create a copy with a new name, but if you ever see it in like your My Documents, It's not easy. Anytime, let's see here. Anytime it saves a file, it will create a subfolder called old versions and create backup files in there. Come on in. And if you go into like just like your regular My Documents and try to like change the name like that, when you open the file, it will be looking for support files based on the new name that you just changed it to, but they won't exist because they'll still be in the old name. Okay, so you can't go in and just like you would with a regular Word document, change the name. You can open the file, do save as, give it a different name, and work from that. But don't go messing around. The other thing is you can't like make a new folder and then drag everything into that folder. Like that also will not work because it's looking for files in that old versions folder that are at like the same level. So you can't really move stuff around like you could with other files. Don't open anything from old versions. Don't save anything into old versions. It creates that folder automatically. It uses it. Just ignore it. You can create in your My Documents folders for each project, but I recommend just saving everything to your My Documents, no subfolders. Give it a good name the first time. Like the one project from was a toy airplane where the files are like airplane fuselage, airplane assembly, airplane exploded piece, so that they all line up that way, and you don't need a subfolder. Like you can really sort of ruin projects by changing the file names, going in and doing that. Just save it correctly the first time in the correct location, and you'll be fine. And if you're not sure, happy to help, of course. No drag and drop. Just don't use subfolders. Everything in My Documents. Okay, as we are working in class, I do need you to help each other, or I would appreciate it if you help each other. It will make things go faster for everybody, but don't do it for anybody. Don't take over the controls and like, let me just do that for you. No, that's not helping. Doing something for somebody is not helping. Helping is showing them, pointing, talking them through it. You don't need to touch the screen. They're not touch screens. I don't know why, but helping each other and neighbors, that's a good thing. If we are doing, like I'm doing a step-by-step demo, like I will be doing shortly and for a while, and I say, has everyone passed this step, or has everyone completed this step? There's a tendency for some people to remain quiet and try to not disturb the class because they're, I don't know, shy, or they want to figure it out. And then the class goes on and we go 3 or 4 or 5 more steps down the road, and that person is still on the first step. Then they need me to come over and help them with the first step and the other steps that they missed. I have no problem if I say, does anybody need help with this step before we move on? I want you to raise your hand. I will come over and help you. We'll fix it in 1 second and you'll be caught up. It's faster to stop. It's faster for the whole class if we stop and I go help one person than it is to have to go on, stop and go help one person for 10 steps. Okay? Don't feel bad about it. You may have missed a word, you missed a single instruction, you looked at your screen when I was demoing something and it went away. Not a big deal. Okay? We'll figure it out. Just raise your hand, ask for help. If you're trying, if you have a good attitude and you're working on this, you'll be fine. All right, this isn't hard stuff. Just, you'll be fine. Don't sweat it. Okay? When we get in there are a couple settings that I need you to change for your own benefit. We'll get to that when, I should put that at the bottom, but We'll get back to that. All right, so there are 4 file types in Inventor. Okay, part file, which are files that end in .ipt, and when you have several different file types, you can sort by file type, and it will only show that file type, which helps. If once you have a ton of files. What's up? Are you new in this class? Just grab a computer. Anyone? This one maybe? Well, just sit for now and where I'm explaining it. This is our computer modeling software, our 3D modeling program. You walked in just at the perfect time. Okay. So of the 4, there are 4 basic file types. And when we start a new anything, it's going to be from this tiny drop down right there. Okay. Not the new button, not the regular new that you're used to. That brings up this menu where it has all the different file types, but it also has like very specific, like sheet metal part file. Like, no, we don't want sheet metal. We want default everything. So you are going to use, whenever you start a new anything, it's this tiny, it's actually called a chevron. I don't know if you're familiar with the word, that word is a downward arrow symbol, and there's a gas company, I think, there used to be, I don't know. They got a business, Chevron, probably got bought by, anyway, this tiny little chevron right here is where we're going to get any one of the 4 file types that we start. Part file is the most basic. Everything requires at least a part file to get going. It is a single, let's wait for my screen drawing software to load up. It is a single item on Active Inspire that has no moving parts. It is just a single item. It can be incredibly complex. There is no limit to the level of complexity, but it is a single thing with no moving parts. And that's it. Again, we're waiting for Active Inspire to load up. Let's give it a second. It looks like it's doing something. Here we go. Beautiful. And now I can draw on the screen. So we're going to spend the majority of our time in a part file, in creating parts. And that, and that, and yeah. Okay, so the most basic anything is a part file. And when you have several parts, you can combine them into an assembly, which is what this is. This is just a toy plane. Okay, and the assembly is made up of several different part files. In this case, like the wings are the same part. Let's see that. Okay, so this wing, and I'm just deleting these constraints that would lock it in. Okay, so it's the same part file. You only need to make, if you have 2 of the same thing, like your assembly has 4 bolts, you only need to make 1 of the bolt, and then you bring in 4 of them, right? And things update automatically. Like if I went back to the fuselage, the plane body, and I'll show you how to do sketches and stuff. If I put a hole in the middle here, and circle, and then I extruded a hole, switch it to cuts. Okay, cuts all the way through, hit OK. Now when I go back to the assembly, it's update. Okay, I'm not going to save that, but there you go. That's how that works. The next file type is a presentation. Okay, so we have part file, which is .ipt, 1 item, no moving parts. Assembly, which is .iam files, and it will choose the right file extension for you. If you open an assembly and hit save, it will handle the .iam. Don't sweat it. But if you're looking for an assembly and you have a list of a ton of files, you can sort by. Anyway, that's how you know what that is. Assembly is multiple parts constrained together. The next one is a presentation. A presentation requires an assembly. Okay, a presentation uses, and you can see it updated automatically. It is, so when to make an assembly, you bring in part files. To make a presentation, you bring in an assembly, and you can you do what's called an exploded view, which is actually what I named the file name, but that's all right. And you can use it two ways. You can use it to record a video, like that explains how things go together or shows how things go together. And these can be way more complex than this. And you can go back in and that sort of thing. The other thing you can use an exploded view, or rather presentation file for, is in a drawing file. Okay, a drawing file is the fourth and final type of file, and it is a sheet of paper, or digital sheet of paper, that you would use to communicate your work, your project. Are you going to try to sell somebody on this idea? This is what I've designed. Are you going to bring it to a client and say, do you want to build this? Are you going to send it to a manufacturer and say, build this exactly the way I designed it? That's what these technical drawings are for. And like I said, you could bring in a exploded view and do a drawing like that. Okay, and you would also have like parts lists, and if this was an assembly view, we'd have a parts list, and I'd probably scale it better, and balloons that, you know, if you have 1,000 parts, you can figure out how useful that would be to see. Part one is airplane fuselage, and I'm sure you've seen like a some assembly required type of thing that you bought would have some sort of assembly view like this that shows, you know, bolt 6 goes through washer 3, and this is how it goes together. This is what that is. You can also use drawings for the assembly, which is just would probably be good as just sort of like a cover sheet type of thing. There's not much going on with just an assembly, but it still looks good. And the more common way we would use it is for part drawings, where you are actually putting dimensions on there. And let's see, it'll be like this. And then we go objective view, this. And you would actually put the sizes of things on it, where, you know, the diameter of that is that, and the size of this hole is that, and there are specific rules for what dimensions to put on it, and there's plenty of time to learn those. But the idea is that is the point of a drawing file. So we've talked about all four. Part file, most basic. Assembly is a bunch of parts put together. A presentation is an assembly that's exploded. Oh yeah. An assembly that's exploded, and a drawing can be any one of those three, but put onto a piece of paper. All right, so like I said, we're going to spend most of our time in part mode. So what I need you to do is, if you haven't already, load up Inventor. If you haven't already, log in. And if you haven't already gotten a green sheet, you need one. Does anybody not have a green sheet? Need one. Those were anybody else not having green sheets of shapes? Go ahead and PC load up Inventor, have Inventor loaded up. Then doing all that. Get into the program. And we're going to change a couple settings before we do anything. You don't need to worry about how they apply, but just trust me on this one. Go to Tech Inventor, it's the last one. It's pointed out to him. All right, so the settings I need you to change. You're going to go up to the top and go to Tools and Application Options. And in Application Options, you're going to click on the tab that says Sketch, which might be on the back row, depending on your size, the size of your screen or whatever. But the two things you need to change here are you need to turn on grid lines and turn on auto project edges for sketch creation and edit. Those are by default off. You need to turn them both on. Just hit the check mark and then hit OK or apply or whatever. Go to Departments. Second grid is the last one. Fine. So, okay, go to tools. Grid lines and auto projectors. The other thing I want you to change is under colors. Like, I'm all for people doing like whatever colors makes their eyes feel good, but I'm telling you which one to do. This is a command, and it's not because it's what makes my eyes feel good. It's the one that has the best disparity between colors that need to be different. Okay, the color you need to switch it to is called Millennium. So colors, you're going to turn on Millennium and switch the background to gradients, and then hit OK. It shows up best on the screen. It also will match my screen. So when I say, look at the purple line, your line will also be purple. Good. Once you switch that, hit OK, and you will be good. Get it? Build an application. Okay. Everybody good? If you're having trouble seeing the board, you can always join the Zoom meeting and I'll tab out of it. Somebody else asked. You are now joined. It's okay if you missed that. Did anybody not get all the way through changing the color? Everybody's good? All right, so go ahead and turn off your screens for a second, and then we will work on whatever. All right, so like I said, we'll go ahead and just hit the power on. Well, turn off the screen. One of them. Hit the green button on the screen. There. That one or two of them are jammed or whatever. Yeah, it's fine. I do that because it's not because I think you guys are gonna like just go play games or whatever. The problem is people that are like so into it, they hear me explain one thing and then they go do it and they look back and they missed the whole thing. And I just want you to take the time. We have plenty of time to do this. Take the time, make sure you're paying attention to what's going on. All right, so like I said, we are going to be using exclusively the default version of everything, which is the tiny drop down in between. And we're going to start with a part file. And let's see, the green sheet. Let's go with that. Let's rotate. All right, so when you are modeling, which is what we're calling it, at least in part mode, or the part files, you are modeling. Think about it as modeling, like modeling something that's at a play. You are building a thing, and the way you build or design a thing, there's two basic techniques, additive and subtractive. Occasionally called subtractive, but that's not working. Okay. Basically, it means first you create some material, and then you cut away what you don't want, and then you create more material, and you cut away what you don't want. You could, depending on how complex the object is that you're making, do it all at once, but it's not usually the easiest way. Okay, so the first thing you have to start with is creating a 2D sketch. Any of these tools across the top that have a drop down below a button, the button is whatever the drop down says at the time. So like a new plane, there are specific types of planes, but if you want just a generic new work plane, you would click on the button. And in this case, we are never going to do a 3D sketch. So you can just start with clicking on the button for 2D sketch. And when you start a 2D sketch, you have to decide where you want to sketch. And at this point, there's nothing to click on except the origin planes. And the origin planes are based on like the center of this universe. Obviously, if you're just looking at the center point of this universe, you can't see direction. But the three planes are based on X, Y, and Z axis. So there's the XY plane, the XZ plane, and the YZ plane. Don't sweat it. The key is that the XY plane corresponds to front, which as this spins around, there's nothing there, so you can't really tell. But either way, generally speaking, we'll start a 2D sketch and start with the XY plane, which is the one that faces this way, so that when we sketch, we're sketching on the front. Now, of the directions, front, back, top, bottom, left, right, it's like there's no up in space. It's all relative. It doesn't really matter. And for our first parts, which are just modeling practice, it really doesn't matter. But later on, it's good to be consistent when you are designing several parts that are designed to fit together. It makes it easier if they pop in with the same orientation. But again, there's no up in space. All right, so we've started a 2D sketch, which we are drawing on a two-dimensional plane, which you can see disappears if you look at it from the side. But the key is whenever you're doing two-dimensional tools, whenever you're sketching, whenever the grid lines are up, that means we're doing two-dimensional tools. You should be looking at it straight on. You should never be sketching when you're looking at it from a corner because of perspective issues. So let's say, like I said, the basic idea is creating material and cutting material away. We have a rectangle. Let's just create a rectangle. And now we have a rectangle. you'll find, my guess is about 90% of you will do this the wrong way the first time, because when you make a rectangle, it's not like highlighting text where you like click, move the mouse, and then release. It's click to start it, a full click, like click down and then lift up your finger, move the cursor, and then full click again. And you'll get used to it, it's fine. But the idea is we make a rectangle, we dimension it. You have to dimension everything, and dimension the same thing. Click once, move your cursor, click again, type in a size that you want, and go 1 by 3 by whatever, example. And then you finish sketching. You'll see the tools up here switch back to the part tools, which are the 3D tools. So you're always in either sketch mode or part mode. Sketch mode is two-dimensional, using circles, rectangles, and lines. And part mode is taking those sketches and turning it into material. Okay? Extrude, you're going to use extrude 10 times more than all the other ones combined, maybe 100 times more. Because extrude is both create material, like that. It's also cut material. Extrude, choose the center, switch it to cut. All. Okay, so extrude is create material and cut material, and that's almost everything. There is revolve, which we'll get to later, but it's another part tool where you choose the axis you want to spin around, and something like that. Okay, you can see how you start with a two-dimensional sketch and turn it into something, but like I said, the majority of the time it's going to be extrude and sketching in 2 dimensions, and then finish sketch. And when you're extruding should be looking at it from a corner so that you can see, relatively how far it's going to extrude. If you're looking at it straight on, you can't tell how far it's extruding, which is why you do 3-dimensional tools looking at a corner and 2-dimensional tools looking at it straight on, just to make it easier on you. Okay, what you will notice is that back here where we made the sketch, we put some dimensions on a rectangle. We made it 3 inches tall by 4 inches wide, but there are still 2 dimensions needed. And because we made it a rectangle, we made it lock in that we made this size needs to be this size, and the same thing, we made this side 4, so this side has to be 4, but it's not constrained in its location. So dimensions make something a certain size, but they also lock in the size. But there's constraining, or dimensions and that sort of thing are also their size and location, and you're always going to fully dimension things. And one trick to getting started is to make sure that you snap it to the center, which not delete the center point. Okay, when you go to make a rectangle, starting rectangle, for this we can use 2 points or center point, doesn't really matter, but snap it to the center of the center point, and then you'll see automatically 2 of these are constrained because when you snap, you can see how when your cursor turns green, when you get near to an edge, it will click to the line, and that's how you know whatever you're about to make will be attached to that line. But if you go to a corner, it turns green. Let's see how close I get. When you get kind of close to a corner, it snaps and turns green, kind of behind the cursor there. And that means it's locked to that corner. You also get a snap at the midpoints when you draw something. But regardless, you almost always want to start snapping to a center point so that it's locked in space. And then we just need to dimension the sizes of whatever we want it to be. And you can see that it says fully constrained. And there are very few times when you want to proceed without fully constraining something. You can see how the lines change colors based on being constrained or not constrained. Okay, so we're going to start with a super easy one. I think that part I is probably the easiest one. I'm going to make it for you, and then we'll make it together. So you come in to a new part file, default part file, and you're making a sketch. Good. Good. On the XY plane, we're going to start, like I said, there's a couple ways to do this. You can start with a rectangle that is this size by this size, and it would extend all the way up. Make a rectangle like that and extrude it back. We're going to use each of these grid marks as 1 inch, even though at the top of the page it says 1/4 inch. Don't worry about it, we'll just do 1. So the first way is to make a full rectangle and extrude it back. And then once you have that, put a sketch on the front and cut out a triangle and cut extrude that back. That's one way to do it. The other way to do it is to just draw this shape with lines and do a single extrude. I think the first way is easier, even though it has an extra step, but I will show you both ways. Okay, so the first way is a rectangle this big, and the dimensions of the rectangle are 1 from the bottom here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 tall, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 wide. So let's dimension the width to 9 and the height to 6. And we'll finish sketch and extrude it a distance of 4. Okay, and now we just need to cut away the corner. We're going to put a new sketch on the face, which I haven't shown you yet. And you can see that I'm not on the origin plane. The origin plane is way back here. I'm sketching on the front face. I put a new sketch on the front of what we just extruded, and now I can draw on that. I'm going to draw a line that connects this point to, or this side to this side. Do not snap it halfway, and do not snap it. Actually, now that I think about this, second one's a little bit harder. You know what? Let's just do it the other way. Give me a second. All right. So instead of doing a rectangle, I just realized that that actually is a more advanced dimensioning situation. We are going to use just the line tool. Okay. Line tool, just like the rectangles, click once, move your cursor, click again, not click, drag, release. Full click, move your cursor, click again. So we want one line to go straight up, and then you do right click, okay, and dimension it. We want it to be the height, which was 6. And you're going to be using your scroll wheel a lot on your mouse to scroll in and out. Then we want another line that goes from here over. Make sure you're snapping it directly. Right click OK. Dimension this to 9 wide. Then we have a line from here that goes straight up. And this is 2, I think. Yeah, 2 tall. And you can see we're sort of working our way around. We've got that and that. We've got that. We need a line across the top that goes 1, 2, 3, 5. And then we just need to connect these points. Sure. 5 that way, and then we can just have a line that snaps from this endpoint to this endpoint. And even though we haven't dimensioned this, it's still fully constrained because we dimensioned everything else. We snapped these lines to vertical and horizontal. So they're locked in that orientation, and then they are connected. So it's fully constrained. We do finish sketch, do extrude, and its depth was 4, and that is part I. When you're done, you would go save, just put it in your my documents, or I guess it's the same as documents, and call it part I. So I like part 1, but part I, and save it. Okay, so you can go ahead and turn on your screens, and we'll walk through it again together, or just go ahead and fly through it. What's up? What's up? You go to the restaurant? Yeah, go for it. Like, I can barely hear that you were talking. Okay, you gotta speak up through the mask. All right, so you're going to create a new part file, default of parts. And once you have that, a 2D sketch on the XY plane. Okay, start your lines from the center point so that they're snapped, they're grounded to something. What's up? We're not doing that. Go back. Up at the top. What's up? On the point is perfect. But I say almost everybody is going to have that because it's so ingrained in every other pro application. Okay. Okay. basic first shape. So this is sketch. This is the sketch that in order to do it. Okay, so so grab one of one. Tapping vertically versus horizontally, but shape. Yes.
I got to see.
Oh, that's the way to feel. What's up? All right, you use the line tool. You got it. Guys, as you're creating lines, you can type in the dimension, but the regular way is going to be using the dimension tool, which is this right here. This tool is the dimension tool. So after you make something, you'll click on the line, move your cursor out, click again. This is going to give me an over constrained thing because I already have that dimension. But the idea is that once you put in a dimension, like at this point, it's not constrained, so it still moves around. But if I get the dimension tool, click on this line, move, and click again, I can type in whatever it's supposed to be. You guys are, and it's not your fault, sort of, because everyone does it. There are so many programs where the interface is like mouse down, move your cursor, mouse up, and that's almost never the case in this program. It's almost always click, as in like mouse down, mouse up, move your cursor, and click again. Clicking and dragging is for very specific things that we're not doing. the FY plan. You also need fuel. Yeah. Oh yeah, model. Yeah. That's critical. Folks, you see on the left side of the screen, there is a toolbar that has like an origin folder and a bunch of other. If you don't have that, you need it, which I think is new at this point. Go to you can like slide it over and give yourself some more real estate, but you need access to those things because you'll see as you build things, and I've got you here in a second. As you make things, as you add new part features, you can see that, let's say I make another part feature, like I draw a circle on the front. I don't know why it's always circle and cut a hole, but we'll go like this and then switch it to cut. I can go through and say, oh, I want to change the first shape. I can do right click, edit sketch, change that and do finish sketch without having to undo everything. And I can go back and edit feature and change the size of that without having to Control Z all the way through. And so you don't need to have the folders open or the little drop downs open, but you can see how useful it's going to be once you have a bunch of stuff going on. Okay, over here and then over there. What's up? Yeah, just put on say the top row, the top left, a little dark rectangle with white rectangle there. All right, so we're almost there. Dimension tool. Timeline. Top one, touch. Okay. And once you have it complete, you can save it. Leave it up for a second, and so I know you know what's going on. So I still go through the sketch. Line tool, and generally start from go up, straight up, that's vertical, type 6 before you can open it. Type 6. Yeah. Folks, a good tip, if you like change a dimension and everything disappears, it probably has to do with your scale. If you are ever too far zoomed in or too far zoomed out, you can hit the home key on your keyboard, which is up and over one from delete, and it will zoom to fit whatever you have. If you put a line that, or have a dot that's 100 miles away, which can't happen. So, that might not solve it, but it almost always solves it. Okay, so home is home. So now you can go down from this one roll along. Line still. What's up? How you do this? Yeah, just call it part I. All right, so you look, see how it says step one, step two, step three. You have a sketch going on. Other people. All yes. Where it says step one, sketch two, step three, step one. Actually, center. Show her the line tool. Okay, so you have one dimensional tool. sketch. And student 4. So just save it to my documents and call the file part file. All right, so you have this little top of vertical line. So the dimension lines are not actually there. It's supposed to purple or black line for top of the vertical. After the line. Bottom right. Yeah. Can you show her the line tool? Since you got it. Yeah. All right, so an issue that I'm seeing a lot of, and again, if it's something I see a lot of, you're in good company. So take a look at this. Pretty much everybody. So there is a difference between the lines of your actual drawing and the dimension lines. These dimension lines, when you click on the dimension tool, you click on a line. Almost everyone is getting the click, move, click again situation. But you click and move over. It doesn't matter where you put your dimension. You can put it all the way over here. It's still dimensioning that line that I first clicked on. But you're better off just sort of putting it out of the way, and you can move it later if you want to. But this dimension isn't actually part of your drawing. It's not like you can't snap a line to it. It's not there. It's just describing and constraining. Okay, it's saying how long this line is, but it's also locking this line in place where if I deleted that constraint, I would then be able to move the length of this line. So dimensions describe a length, but they also change it and lock it in. But the point is, your best bet is to just keep them sort of out of the way of whatever you're drawing. And yeah, so those are dimension lines. And I just sort of threw it in there. Most of you are getting it from context, but dimensioning is the act of putting a dimension on something. So when I say dimension that, that's what that means. It means get the dimension tool, click on whatever line you want to change and lock in the length of, and yeah, so there's that. So far, we haven't done many complex things with needing to deal with the view cube. But the view cube up here is probably your best bet for like manipulating and moving things around. There are other options. Okay, so your scroll wheel, your mouse wheel, zooming away, like if you mouse wheel, push the mouse wheel, I guess it's mouse wheel up technically, but like push the wheel away from you, the object goes away from you, which I think is the opposite of like Google Maps or something. Some mouse up is zoom in. Here, mouse up is zoom out. I still do it wrong all the time. Don't feel bad. Okay. The home key on your keyboard, if you're not sure, the home key of these 6 keys have to have a name. But the 6 keys, like there's delete, insert, page up, page down. That home key will zoom to whatever it is you have. It's different than this home button here above the view cube. The home button above the view cube will do the same size, will fill everything, but will always go back to front top right corner, which is useful, unless like, okay, well, I'm doing a sketch or something way over here, and I wanted to fill the screen, then I hit the home key. If I wanted to go back to the top front right corner, then I would do that. Other useful tips, and a lot of these things, when you get better at manipulating the program, it gets easier, because when you can do, like, if you can read faster, you can learn things. It's not as much of a struggle to learn new things. I don't know if that's the best analogy, but if you can manipulate your work better, you'll be better off. If you press the mouse wheel in like it's a button, you get the grip hand, which is good. That's good times. And if you hold down, this is like next level stuff. If you hold down the shift key and press the mouse wheel in, you get free orbit. Okay, that's super cool. Again, also unnecessary if you just want to use the view cube and whatnot. There's other orbits going on, like constrained orbit if you want to move just on one axis. But for our stuff, that's not critical. Your best bet is just using the view cube until you get more comfortable. All right, so if you have part I done, go ahead and save it, and you can just close it. Once it's saved, closed. Okay, this is for some of you who are super young. This, I don't know how many of you have never seen a actual floppy disk, and so this is a floppy disk, even though these were the second generation that aren't actually floppy. They're diskettes. They were probably, the last time I used one was probably in middle school in the 90s, late 90s, not that old. But for those of you who have no clue what the the save symbol is on programs, that's what that is. It's a diskette. Okay. Not your fault if you were born in the mid 2000s. In fact, it's like 100% not your fault. But that's what that is. Okay. So when you save, you're going to click on save. Again, until you get very familiar with things, just save everything to your My Documents and you'll be fine forever. Call the file part I. Or is that an I? Yeah. Oh gosh, I hate sans serif. And then you can close it. It's done. All right. Is anybody still stuck on I? You look like you're about done. Hit finish sketch. Hit finish sketch. The top right, the green check mark. The top right, other top right, righter. There you go. Green check mark. Finish sketch. Yep. And across the top, it says 3D model is one of the toolbars. And it normally, one of the tabs, 3D model across the top. No, not 3D sketch. Next, the toolbar. Okay, you see where the line tool is? The line tool. It says line next to circle. Directly above line, there's a tab. And click on extrude, the first one, and extrude it 4 and hit enter. All right, so that was interesting. The next one, for some reason I thought I was the easiest, but it actually has a bit of, because it's line tools, it's a bit more complex. We're going to do part C. Okay, so here is the deal. I'll do it, all of it, and you guys can watch. If you are having trouble seeing the TV or the projector, and yes, I know the projector is low res relatively, feel free to join the Zoom meeting and watch it on your own computer. Is anybody not sure how to join the Zoom meeting? I'll help you. Okay, so you need to go to the classroom, like the MyMCPS classroom in Chrome, or I guess any browser, doesn't really matter. Go to in this class. Go to classes and go to Foundations of Engineering. You see it? Foundations of Engineering, and then announcements. And then on the click on the announcements. Yeah. See the announcements, like the actual announcements. I click on that link if it lets you. Click on, yeah, that. There you go. Now click on the link for the spreadsheet. And then where it says Zoom P1. Hit OK. Whatever it takes to open the meeting. Okay, got it. There you go. All right, so screen's off unless you're following the Zoom meeting or opening the Zoom meeting. So here is the plan for part C. Part C, again, there's a couple ways to do it. We're going to do what I think is the most sort of straightforward way of doing it, and that is creating one giant block. We'll do a rectangle and extrude it back. So we have a block, and then we are going to cut away a rectangle this far back and cut away a rectangle, that size rectangle, that far back. Okay, you could do it all in additive, meaning like make just this back part that's only 2 deep, and then draw this front L or J shape and extrude that out. But I want you to get used to the sort of add and subtract method of creating things. So not yet, but in a second, We'll create a new part, or you will, but not yet. And again, we'll start a 2D sketch on XY plane. So that corresponds to front. And we need a rectangle. Well, we're trying to make this full block. So the whole height is 6. The whole width is 4, 3, and 2 more. So that's 9. So we need a rectangle that's 9 wide and 6 tall. And then we're going to extrude it 4. And we'll go with that. Okay, so we need a rectangle. And again, for these simple things, it doesn't really matter if you start it anywhere, but it is best practice to start from the center, and you'll get a snap to the center point. It'll be locked in place, and that's a good habit. Click once to start it, click again to set it, get the dimension tool. With our one line, we want it to be 9 wide and 6 tall. I'm going to hit home so that it fills the screen. There we go. We'll do finish sketch and extrude. And you can zoom out to see the whole thing, but you can just use the toolbar. We're going to extrude it 4. Hit OK. All right, so now we need to make the shape that we want to cut. And we can do it in 2 sketch extrusions or just 1, since the extrusion back is the same distance for both of these. We can do it in the same sketch and same extrusion. And it's more fun. So I'm going to put a sketch on this front face. And while I'm drawing on that front face, I'm going to draw a rectangle that is this big and a rectangle that is this big. And we'll do extrude, but we'll do cut extrude, and we'll cut it back a distance of 2 to get rid of the material we don't want. Okay, so that's going to start a 2D sketch. Remember, if it's just started 2D. Guys, I appreciate the go-ahead nature of everything, but just hang out for a second. Just honestly, the clicking is just distracting. But and if you get it this good, you're going to be fine. So don't sweat it. Okay, so start a 2D sketch. Remember, the button is fine. It's not start 3D sketch. It's start 2D sketch and click on the front. Don't click and drag. We don't want an offset sketch plane. We just want a sketch plane on that face. Just full click. Okay, and you can see you don't need to move the view cube, but you can see how I'm just sketching on that face. We're drawing 2-dimensional grids on that face. So for the top left, I need a rectangle. And the first click is going to snap to this top left corner. Because I want this rectangle to go all the way up to this edge on both accounts, my first click needs to snap to that corner. My second click can be anywhere around this area because I'm going to dimension the length of the line to get it to be a 4 wide and 3 tall rectangle. But either way, first click, move my cursor, second click, dimension the length of this to 3, just trust me on that, and this to 4. Okay, and I could do finish sketch and extrude and choose this, switch to cut, and only cut 2. And then do that again for this, but because it's the same, we're just going to do it all on the same sketch with it before we hit finish sketch. So that's one of the rectangles. The other one, because I want this rectangle to be all the way to this edge, all the way, the rectangle is going to lie entirely on this edge, and this edge. There's only one dimension I need to make, and it's how far this line is from the side, or the width, I guess you call it.
Good morning, Blazers, teachers and students. First period is now ending. All students will remain in their first period classes now as we transition to the innovation period. Teachers will access the information for the innovation periods, which can be found in the opening week